You ever wake up to the sound of your whole world being torn in half before you even get your first sip of coffee? Because that's how my day started. I'm telling you, the very first thing I saw out my window wasn't sunrise, wasn't my mountain view, wasn't even my old porch swing creaking in the breeze. It was my father's 100-foot oak tree shivering like it knew its time was up, and standing in front of it, clipboard raised like a battle flag, was Karen, the infamous HOA president, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. And not a soul on the block dared say a word. I didn't even think I just bolted outside barefoot, coffee sloshing down my shirt, heart racing, and all I could do was holler above the scream of a chainsaw as it bit into the heart of that tree. You ever hear a tree die? Not just fall, but die. It's a sound that gets inside your chest and rattles your bones. By the time my boots hit dirt, I heard that final crack deep as thunder. That oak planted by my father's own hands 40 years ago groaned, leaned and toppled, not onto my house, not onto my yard, but straight across the street, right through the shiny silver hood of Karen's pride and joy, her husband's semi-truck. If karma could ever sculpt a work of art, that was it. Metal, twisted sawdust everywhere. Karen's jaw dropped so wide you could have parked another truck in it, and me standing there like a fool with a mug dangling from my hand, just whispering, "You shouldn't have touched my tree." And then all hell broke loose. Karen starts screaming my name like I'd called down the storm myself, red in the face veins popping out of her neck, waving her arms and pointing at me like I was the one holding the chainsaw. Her landscaping crew froze eyes wide, staring at the carnage, her husband's trucking logo smashed and barely readable through the wreckage. She stomped around, kicking wood, demanding to know why I let her destroy my own property. I just stood there numb, thinking about how surreal it all was, my favorite oak, my dad's legacy, wiped out in a single morning by a woman with more authority than sense. That tree wasn't just wood and leaves, it was a landmark. The oldest thing on the street. Its branches shaded half the neighborhood, and its roots ran deeper than most people's morals. It stood for something, and now it was gone. The siren started up, and Sheriff Daniels rolled up in his cruiser looking like he'd walked into the world's weirdest episode of Cops. Karen didn't waste a second. She started spinning. Her story said I was negligent, said my old tree was a hazard, said I'd caused the damage to her truck. Daniels just raised an eyebrow, glanced at the chainsaw marks, glanced at the shivering work crew, and waited. And then one of those workers just blurted out, "She told us to cut it down." Daniels took off his hat, sighed, and said, "Ma'am, I think you've got this backward." That was the first crack in her armor. You could feel the air change, neighbors peeking through their curtains, Mrs. Lopez clutching her dog, old man Roger shaking his head. We'd all been living under Karen's rule for too long. Her letters, her fines, her drive-bys. But this time she'd crossed into my land. My land that, by the way, wasn't even under the HOA's jurisdiction. She'd hired a crew, skipped the permits, and just decided. And in that pile of splintered wood and ruined steel, she handed me the gift of a lifetime proof. Actual, undeniable evidence. After the sheriff finished up, Karen stomped over and hissed, "You'll hear from the HOA, and you'll pay for this." I just looked at the stump, my dad's words echoing in my mind. "If you ever doubt what's yours, look for what you've grown with your own hands," and said, Funny, I was about to say the same thing. She marched off barking orders at her crew, but they were smart enough to know they'd trespassed, and they packed up and left. That afternoon, the gossip spread faster than wildfire. "Did you see her face? He warned her about that tree last year. She's going to lose it." And she was. By sundown, I got an HOA email slapping me with a $5,000 fine for creating a community hazard. I actually laughed out loud, because what she didn't know was that my home security footage had caught her clear as day, ordering those men to cut it down before he wakes up. He'll thank me later. That's when I realized this wasn't about a tree anymore. This was about patience, and I had plenty of that. That night, sitting on my porch in the moonlight, the stump still warm, I felt something shift. Karen thought she ran this block, but she had no idea what I did for a living or how much patience a man grows when he's defending what matters. The next day, as tow trucks tried to drag her ruined semi from the ditch, she barked at everyone like a general on a sinking ship. Sheriff Daniels rolled by, nodded at me through the window. One of those "you'll be fine" looks that only comes from old friends or smart men. And I knew she wanted a fight. She was going to get one, but not the kind she expected. I spent that night digging into the HOA bylaws, county codes, and state heritage tree laws. Turns out my oak was protected under a state act. Anyone who cut it down without written consent could be fined, even sued for damages. The irony tasted sweet. She wanted control. I wanted justice. By now, Karen was rallying her troops, megaphone out, clipboard raised, 4 board members in tow giving speeches about reckless homeowners and community safety. I sipped my coffee behind the curtain, just letting her dig her own hole. When I finally walked out, she tried to shame me in front of the crowd. There he is, the man responsible for destroying HOA property. I couldn't help myself, almost choked on my coffee. That was my tree on my land, Karen, the one you ordered cut down. Her smile froze, then melted. She called an emergency meeting for that night. When I showed up to the meeting, the place was packed. Karen stood at the front like the queen. She thought she was reading off her script. But when she opened the floor, I calmly walked up, laid out the zoning map, showed the boundary, showed the footage, and just let the silence sit. Her board started fidgeting. Greg even asked to see the video. I played it for the whole room, Karen's voice clear as day ordering the cut. The laughter, the whispers, she lost the room. And for once, she had nowhere to run. By the time I got home, there was another violation notice taped to my mailbox claiming I'd disrupted the peace. I tore it up and tossed it in the fire. That night I dug into the HOA's budget records, public thanks to county law. Funny thing, when you follow the money, you find out who's been feeding at the trough. Community maintenance payments, construction playground reno that never happened, all routed to Karen's husband's company. Classic small-town corruption. I printed everything. Operation Chainsaw was born. The days blurred by. The neighborhood changed. People started talking again, nodding, smiling. Karen's legend was cracked. I filed my complaint with the county's environmental office, sent them everything, the deed, the footage, the permits she never bothered to get. When the county rep showed up, he just shook his head and said, "This is open and shut." Karen's world started to shrink. County notices, environmental fines, insurance claims denied. Her truck was gone. Her pride was in tatters. Greg stopped by nervous, told me Karen was pushing for my community privileges to be suspended. I poured him coffee, slid him a folder with the payment records. "You like being on the board?" I asked. "Used to," he said, "before it became a circus." I left it at that. Next HOA meeting. Greg calmly asked Karen to explain all those payments to her husband's company. The silence was deadly. Karen went pale, then red, then bolted. The meeting erupted. I just sat back, watched it unfold, and knew the tide had turned. A few days later, the county's final report came in. $35,000 in fines for Karen plus restitution. HOA board suspended her pending investigation. For the first time, I slept easy. The night after her suspension, I saw Karen out by the stump flashlight, shaking in her hand, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Almost made me pity her, almost. She tried every move lawyer, letters, flyers about negativity door-knocking with her dwindling loyalists. The more she fought, the more people rolled their eyes and the quieter the block got. Then the best letter of all, her insurance company denying her claim because the damage was the result of voluntary unlawful activity. Karma served ice cold. A week after the public filing, Karen's house was a mess, papers everywhere for sale sign leaning against her mailbox. Her name was a punchline. Board voted her out for good. Her husband drove off. Lawsuit after lawsuit piled up. When she finally moved out, the neighborhood let out a collective sigh. Greg brought whiskey. We toasted the oak and what had grown in its place. I planted a new sapling, a strong one, tall and proud. The county even gave me a certificate for environmental restoration. The neighborhood changed. No more fear, no more Karen. Peace settled in quiet and real. And one day a letter slipped under my door, 2 words, "I'm sorry." No name, but I knew. I folded it up, tucked it in the old evidence folder, and let it be. So here's what I learned. Revenge isn't about tearing someone down. It's about standing your ground, letting the truth grow roots, and outlasting the noise. You don't win by shouting or by fighting fire with fire. You win by planting something that outlives the storm. So, what do you think? Was it justice or just luck? Was I right to fight back, or should I have let it go? Drop your thoughts. Below, share your stories. Tell me what justice means to you. Because in the end, we all live in somebody's shadow, but it's up to us to decide what grows there.